Hi, everybody. Can you hear us, Mr. Trump?
Yes.
All right, there we go. Well, thank you all for coming. I wish we had a lot more time because this is going to be a really fun panel. So I'll get right to it. My first question, and actually my first comment, is to Don Jr. First, for people who don't know, I have a lot of friends and family in North Carolina. And back in October, I sent my Black Hawk out to work with Samaritan's Purse and others for hurricane relief. And when you do that, you run into strange bedfellows. We actually ran into Don Jr. in October, and it meant the world to all of us that you created a lot of notoriety and publicity for that event, because a lot of people were hurting and needed help. So first, from our family, we'd like to thank you for that.
Well, I really appreciate it. That was one of those sort of great honors. The guys at Samaritan's Purse invited me up, and I saw the devastation. I saw sort of the neglect. I think it became sort of a fulcrum point of the entire campaign, frankly, because when you're doing that, and these guys are flying your Black Hawk, and they're bringing in generators for people who are going to go through a really cold period of time, and they're bringing in clothes and food. I was like, I don't want to take up this space. I actually felt sort of guilty about it, but I did want to see it for my own eyes and just see what was the difference between the coverage and whatnot. And and I got there, and the first person I made eye contact ran up to me, gave me hugs and tears, and it was like, oh, it's actually we're doing some great work and just creating some stuff around it. It was great to see Samaritan's Purse and you guys doing that kind of work that again wasn't happening from the institutions that should have been probably dealing with that. So thank you so much for that contribution. It was an honor of a lifetime to be able to just be a small part of it and a little fly on the wall.
Okay. So anyway, the first question I have for you is, you can do pretty much anything. You're a smart guy, got a great family, a lot of opportunity. Why come into the cryptocurrency space? Why come in the blockchain industry? What about our industry philosophically was appealing to you, and what problems do you want to solve?
Listen, I think for me, it was really interesting, right? I came from a hard asset family. That's what we did. We built and sold and held real estate forever. And for a long period of time, I had access to everyone in the world. I could pick up and the phone and speak to any banker and get a loan almost instantly. And everything was sort of easy. And then all of a sudden we got into politics and we made our opinions known. And you put that little R next to your name, and all of a sudden that became really difficult. And I sort of realized very quickly just how much discrimination there is in the ordinary financial markets. Beyond the inefficiency, beyond the waste, the amount of bankers I know that make, 7 figures a year, basically moving a piece of paper from one side of a desk to another, not really adding any value. It was such a rude awakening to just how discriminatory the entire market is, just how inefficient it was. And, as I started learning more about, crypto, blockchain, everything, you realized, wait a minute, this is the answer to all of this stuff. So I guess I jokingly said, I got myself in a little trouble. I jokingly said the first time I was asked this sort of question was like, I realized I was just at the top of the pyramid scheme. I didn't realize it. I realized that the entire, financial system and the entire banking world was really one big Ponzi scheme. I just had the benefit of being, in the upper echelon of that. And once I was at the bottom rung, and we're getting debanked and canceled for, simply having opinions that didn't go along with the fold, we became problematic, and all of a sudden we went from being, the golden children to persona non grata, and that made me really start thinking. And my brother, I guess collectively we're the most subpoenaed people in the history of the United States, all for nonsense, as we know now, but it didn't matter. You still had to deal with it at the time. And so when I started talking with Zach about it, Zach's dad, Chase, other Zach, I think we realized that there's a much better way to do this. There's a more efficient way to do this. And that's how we sort of went down the rabbit hole on all of this. So we're just super excited about this. But it was really probably the biggest rude awakening I've had. And that includes, having the U.S. government basically go after you and try to throw you in jail for nothing. And so I'm just super excited about what this can mean for the future of banking, for the future of the financial systems. And again, I was sort of the beneficiary of the old way of doing things, but that doesn't mean it's the best way of doing things. So I think we're just very excited to be here, super excited. It's sort of interesting to talk in a room like this where I imagine everyone in the room has forgotten more about crypto than I'll ever know. That's the kind of level of attendees I've seen, and the panelists as well. But coming from it from a totally different side of the space, I realized that this is the answer as far as I'm concerned. I think it's the future of our financial systems, and I want to make sure that's domiciled in America, done by Americans, with that security, et cetera.
Brilliant. So first, thank you for helping me sort out the order, because there's two Zachs, and I was trying to figure out how to call you guys. So there's Zach and other Zach.
And other Zach.
I'm sorry, you get to be other Zach.
All right, I'll take it.
That came from Don. Okay, so my first question is to Zach. What is World Liberty Finance? You guys are relatively new, but also been around for a while at the same time. So what problem are you trying to solve? What's the story of your venture?
Yeah, that's a great question, Charles. I think we're trying to solve a few different problems. I'll touch on our first product that we just announced yesterday, which is our stablecoin USD1. We view stablecoins as an integral part of not only crypto, but the entire financial ecosystem. When we talk about stablecoins, everyone in this room knows we're talking about seamless cross-border payments that settle instantly. Like Don, I came from the hard asset world of real estate. And if you want to buy, call it, $100 million building, $1 billion building, it might take 2 or 3 weeks for that wire to clear, right? And in that 2 or 3 weeks, stuff is happening. It's dynamic, right? With stable coins, you can settle instantly. You can settle across borders. It's currently a $250 billion total market cap business. We think it's going to be many trillions of dollars in the next few years. And we're excited for the world to experience our stablecoin USD1 that's built on world-class banking rails, and we think it's going to be a huge benefit to the world.
Yeah, coming from a hard asset background, I also have a few hard assets these days. One of our biggest issues is liquidity, and it sounds like what you guys are creating really does enhance and enable a democratization of liquidity. Do you want to go a little bit into that?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Stable coins, we like to say they're blind. They don't discriminate between users. We want, Republicans, Democrats, whether you're black, blue, brown, white, to be, using our stable coin. We think it's, like you said, it democratizes finance. It's obviously fully backed one-to-one by U.S. Treasuries, so it's also very secure. And we think that retail and institutions are, really going to lean into this product. Okay,
so other Zach.
Yes.
How do you think about ecosystem development, kind of growing a community and growing a product? And what ecosystems are priorities for you guys right now?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So, the thing is that where we stand at World Liberty, our goal is not really to reinvent the wheel, right? We all have been in the space for over 10 years. I mean, Zach included has also been in crypto for a while. Chase and I have been in crypto for 10 years now. We truly believe that there are some very, very smart people building some incredible products out there. And our goal is not to go out and build a better product. Instead, our goal is to take our distribution platform that we've built and create a better experience for the user that allows them to come into crypto, whether it's experienced crypto user and get a better UI UX, or whether it's a non-native crypto user who has never transacted in crypto before, and make it very easy for them to on and off ramp in and out of crypto, transact with different protocols, whether it's a lend and borrow market, whether it's a staking product. The problem is that everything is just so difficult. Even for myself, who has been in the space for 10 years, it's a pain in the ass to do a lot of the transactions that you want to do. Our goal here is to literally make it so that everybody feels comfortable and confident using the products that people like yourself, people like some of the other amazing builders in the space have already innovated and put a nice brand around it where they feel comfortable and they feel secure and they feel like they are already able to interact with it just like they would with a very friendly Web 2 application that they use every single day.
Yeah, you already have some great relationships like Aave and Binance and these others, and it's been so much fun to kind of watch the ecosystem grow. When we launched Cardano, our distribution was to initially 9,000. You guys started 85,000 people, and it just keeps growing. And so it's so cool when you see these orders.
85,000 KYC users.
Exactly right. And we were the same, actually. We were the first to KYC, and it was all in Japan. And it was like unorthodox for the time. No one was like, why are you doing that? Ethereum
Still
didn't do
is.
that? Yeah, exactly right. And having such a large base and being able to bring democratized liquidity and give products to them, it's really exciting because the other thing I love is rapid product development. You can come up with an idea and deploy that within 6 weeks to 12 weeks. Traditional financial services, it takes like 5 years to 10 years to 15 years to roll things out. So, Chase, you've been in space very long as well, and we were both commiserating behind the scenes on, kind of community and tribalism. Now that we're experiencing a great reset because the politics have changed a bit, how do you imagine the space can come together? How can people come together?
Wow. So another great question, of course. I think maybe a little controversial, I say. I think we could learn something from the banks, actually. One thing is when I look at the banks, they seem to all kind of be together. You never really see them arguing or bickering or showing like holes in their systems where other people can point and poke. And I think that's huge because when someone's trusting their life savings or their everyday usability of their fiat, that's a really big position to make. And I think the problem with crypto is somehow we become very bifurcated and very tribal in our tactics, and we do it in front of everybody, and we let the world see that. And I think what happens is it builds doubt that the maturity level is here when as Zach said, some of the best builders and developers in the world live here, but I think they're being drowned out by this noise. And so one of our biggest goals is to kind of bring everybody back together and realize that this is a free market, and let the free market dictate who survives and who doesn't, and who thrives and who doesn't, and just go out and build very simple products. And we went out on that mission. We look at it a little differently, I think, than most. We believe that most people aren't speculators; they're actually consumers. Crazy thought process, right? And most of them just would like a better product to consume with. So the average everyday American just in America is being held by their bank account that's being, maybe Gusto sends it in or a payroll company sends it in. They're being held living paycheck to paycheck with no reward and kind of stuck in that system, right? And the idea is if you trim back all that fat, there's actually some robust rewards that end user could be given with doing nothing else different than what they're already doing consuming in their everyday life. So maybe they make $4,000 a month, and at the end of the year or at the end of the month, they got an extra $26. That literally changes the nature and how people can move about. And we think that because there's so many brilliant people in the space, that port was kind of overlooked, right? Where, we had kind of taken a wall down, we had put a bridge up. And so for us, we plan on, using, paymasters and relays to make it so that you don't have to have these seed phrases and these codes and make it much more like a better version of your bank account, something everybody uses, they know how to use, they understand its safety, its security, and its use case. We just plan to build something that's a little bit better, a little bit freer, and a little bit more impactful for the end user by trimming the fat. And so I think by taking that avenue, we realize that everybody deserves to be here because you can't have great companies without understanding what the bad companies are too, right? You need to be able to see that deflection to be like, oh, okay, that's not what to do. This is the better idea. And so I'm truly, the goal as my personal self sits here, and I know my partners can stand to this, and the Trumps say it so eloquently, is we're trying to bring the hospitality back to cryptocurrency. Right. It's time that we all get along and we move this forward because I'll close this last one thing on the stablecoin. Cryptocurrencies, stablecoins are one of the largest buyers of U.S. debt in the world. Okay, you want to.
is the seventh largest private holder of U.S. Treasury.
Exactly, and when you actually think about that,
it was the seventh largest total, including governments.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're doing very well this year, especially.
Yeah.
And I just think if crypto wants this massive power, it's understanding the playing field. And the reason that we have these deals with other countries is because they hold our debt. There's a lot of power in that dichotomy, and we plan to bifurcate it into everybody's hands because not only are you protecting this sovereign land and making sure that the dollar is the settlement layer for another 50 years, at the same time, you're giving these people this unchained banking apparatus that allows them to have their dollars that maybe are earning 4%, 5%, 6% right in their account where they can pay directly at any source of consumerism. So they're dialed. And so I just think that we looked past the most simple idea, and that is how do you get a consumer to consume with a better product?
Yeah. So the next question goes to Zach, as you guys launch your stablecoin, I always ask anybody launching stablecoins, how do you imagine that market's going to evolve over the next 3 to 5 years? And what is going to make a stablecoin of 2030 competitive? You know, not where the puck is at, but where the puck is going.
I assume that's to me, not others.
Well,
Zach.
these others.
Yeah, I mean, I think in, call it 12 to 24 months, our goal is for you to be able to walk into your local bodega and, buy a ham sandwich using stablecoins. So I think that's really the next evolution is the usability of those stablecoins. Right now, we can obviously use them in DeFi, right? We can use them in, a centralized crypto environment, but in a real-world environment, there's still a little bit of a ways to go, if you will. And we plan on leading that charge along with our partners like Chainlink, who do great things for the space, partners like Tron and, some of the centralized exchanges you named before. So we plan on, along with our partners, really making our mark on the space and making sure that stable coins are really usable in the real world.
If you look at stablecoin adoption, there's obviously some phenomenal stablecoin players that have been in the space for a long time, but they have their own area where they really specialize. And we really believe that in order for stablecoins to move to this multi-trillion-dollar market cap, it needs to attack centralized finance, decentralized finance, and retail adoption like Zach was just talking about. So our goal is to really touch on all three of these things and bring it together so that our stablecoin is truly fungible with the US dollar. It doesn't matter if it's on-chain, at a bodega like Zach said, or in a decentralized environment.
Yeah.
Just got 2 Zachs for the price of 1.
Oh, there you go. One of the cool things about cryptocurrency and blockchain tech is that in addition to exporting capabilities, you export values. The protocols have embedded within them philosophies. So if there's US-backed stablecoins on them, you're actually exporting the United States, in essence. So that's such a cool thing, and it's something I've really enjoyed. I was just in Argentina, and I found out that there's about $100 billion worth of crypto assets that are in Argentina that dominated by the dollar. Their GDP is $700 billion. So 1 out of every $7 of value in the economy is in crypto. It's just incredible. You go to Vietnam, 31% crypto adoption. So these protocols are so cool in that they also normalize and globalize markets in ways that are intrinsically fair. I love stablecoins because eventually you'll get a yield at some point. Somebody's going to figure out a way to make that happen. And then it's like, wow, I get paid 3, 4, 5% to hold this thing, and then I can spend it anywhere, and I have no transaction fees. That just feels like an intrinsically better world to live in for everybody. So we'll close it off with Don. As you kind of look to the future in the next 5 and 10 years, 15 years, what problems do you hope World Liberty can solve? Do you imagine like a merger of multiple worlds, like hard assets coming in and creating liquidity for real estate? Or do you really want to push the consumer adoption? Kind of take it where you want.
Yeah, listen, I think general utility. I mean, I think everyone sort of just touched on it right now. When you talk about holding, treasuries, you see sort of the attack on what was always sort of the petrodollar over the last few months. This is really the stability that America needs. But as the Zacks, to perhaps use the office space, an analogy, as the Zacks and Chase would say, the amount of times in the last 2 years that we've been talking, and I'm trying to figure out, how to make something that should otherwise be simple, but perhaps isn't if you haven't been in the space for 10 years. It's sort of a name. So creating that utility, that ease of use that, perhaps a average, almost boomer like myself can figure out. I mean, that's my goal. I mean, I think obviously you can play big, on the real estate and the hard asset side and change up the banking system, but the utility, making it easy for everyone else to understand. It's not mystical. It's not sort of the meme coin space that my son plays in all the time. And, frankly, is probably one of the greatest tools I can think of today to teach young people entrepreneurship, to get them to understand how these systems work. It's so much faster. There's so much more excitement. Once they're vested and staked in that a little bit, they're actually paying attention. And I'm looking at these kids that are my son's age. They're 15, 16, 17 years old. They could run circles talking about liquidity with my buddies that graduated from Wharton with me who've worked at Goldman for 25 years. It's truly spectacular. But I think number one would be utility. If we can figure out how to make it easy to use, this is a no-brainer. And I think we're there. We're on that cusp. We just have to demystify some of that. We have to make it so that people don't just assume that you're gambling when you do this. These are real assets backed by U.S. Treasuries. It's just as safe as a bank account, but without all of that extra nonsense, without that inefficiency, without the tens of thousands of people throughout the system who are making seven figures that honestly, I like them. I want them to be successful. They're friends of mine for years, but I'm not exactly sure what they do anymore. If you can, but that's true. That's 100%. We laugh, but there's probably trillions of just waste in keeping these old systems alive. And to Chase's point, the banks and the banking system has managed to stick together because I think they all realize that if they don't, people will find another way. So they have this monopoly that's been very inefficient, but has controlled a lot of the power and has discriminated, based on narrative talking points, however many boxes you check from a socioeconomic standpoint, who gets the benefit or not. So if you can create that utility, you can create that fairness. The sky is the limit for this. And so, I think we're there. And it's also why we're not just trying to reinvent some sort of new widget and do it better than everyone else, but frankly, bring everyone together, consolidate these great ideas, these great platforms, this incredible technology. If we can do that, and perhaps some of the value we add is make it okay for the retail consumer who isn't as versed as everyone in the room, who there is some mystique to it. If we can simplify that down, give them the utility that they're looking for, that to me is the keystone for making this happen. And I think we're there.
Brilliant answer. Thank you so much, guys. I wish we had a full hour, but unfortunately we only had 20 minutes. And I want to thank the organizers for putting this all on. This conference has grown tremendously. I was here 2 years ago, and it was easy to get a coffee, and now we have to wait. So thank you all. Thank you all for coming. Thank you guys for being on the panel. This was a heck of a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yes.